Thank you, Alex. Alex is a big part of all that, too. Very big part. Well, happy fourth day of the Feast of Tabernacles. The current forecast, yes. Oh, fine, okay. I was supposed to give this yesterday. Right, Bill? Wherever you are out there. We changed the schedule. He swapped with Vance. Okay, you're right, 5, okay. The current forecast says we have an 80% chance of sunshine and good weather. Actually, they said 20% chance of rain, but I'd rather put it on the positive side. And even that's going to be very late in the afternoon. So last year when we had the picnic, it rained. It was just the opposite percentage, and we still had a great picnic. So I hope everybody's able to come out today and enjoy the food that's been prepared for you, and we'll have another great picnic and softball tournament if there's enough people. I'm too sore to play from bowling the other night. Sure. Well, it's been quite a year. We've heard a lot of things have been happening. It's been a year since we've come together for an 8-day period like this. We've heard many of the things going on in the world, the incredible things that have happened since last time we were here. We're definitely getting closer to an end of something, the end of this age. Things are getting crazy out there. How long can it go on? Well, let's read what Jesus said in Matthew 24, and I'm just going to read some of this for brevity. You can mark it down and check me. I'll be quoting sometimes from modern translations, but Matthew 24, starting in verse 3. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and the end of the world," or end of the age? And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdoms against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilence, earthquakes in different places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." I think we should frequently read what Jesus had to say about it as we try to understand prophecy in the light of modern events. Go back and get our foundation there. Some of the things we read about would be maybe kind of funny or silly if it wasn't for the fact that it's true, and in some cases it's harm is done. I saw my first wrong way driver alert this week coming through Tampa. Anybody else see those? I've never seen one before, but we've had like 11 deaths just this year from people driving the wrong way on the expressway or the interstate. I think they all involved alcohol, so just be careful out there when you're driving. If you see a flashing thing that says wrong way driver alert, start looking for a car going the wrong way on the interstate. The media has given a lot of attention to drones lately. And I suppose if maybe a little concern if your name is similar to somebody's name who's on that the Homeland Security watch list. I saw how people who had similar names, that were like somebody else, and they had all kinds of trouble flying on the list. But drones, I don't know whether Amazon's going to deliver our books or packages that way, but who knows what will come. But did anybody see the news yesterday about the drone flying that the Hawk took down? Nobody saw that? You saw it, yeah. It was a camera drone. I don't know, it was a TV station or something. They were flying over a park area, and you see this hawk flying around, and then that hawk comes right in and hits the drone and makes it crash. The hawk won. That was cool. Nature won. Nature won. Our entertainment and pop media is full of bizarre and even occult ideas. This craze, whether the vampires, from Hunger Games and all these different things, and of course some of it can be kind of just funny. The Dawn of the Dead or the Living Dead. Some years ago, when we attended in Fort Myers, Florida, we went out to eat after church, and we didn't know they were filming one of the first movies of Dawn of the Dead, and people were coming in with body parts hanging off, and very unappetizing. But yeah, some of this might be funny, but some of our kids can really be affected by things like this. And most of it's just nonsense. I say nonsense. It's not logical. It's not rational, and it's plain nonsensical. I think one of my grandkids said, "Are zombies real?" They don't know. If nobody ever told them, so it can have an effect on them. Astrology, that has had a resurgence. I guess one of our first ladies actually used to consult an astrologer to advise the president. But things in the sky, they're phases of the moon. They don't control events on Earth. Now, the moon, of course, phases do control the tides and can, of course, control, for those fishermen, you look at the moon phase to see when's the best time to go fishing, but it does not control the destiny of mankind. It's not mankind's destiny, and events are not controlled by a horoscope. Could God make a biblical event occur in conjunction with something in the heavens? Sure he could. But it happened because God did it, not because the moon was in Aquarius. Let's read Matthew 24, continuing on in verse 23. "Then if any man shall say to you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, inasmuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I've told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say to you, Behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not." It does seem that there are always people out there trying to influence others. They might even be sincere people, and they may believe it themselves. I presume they do believe it themselves. But they just might be going off half-cocked, not proving things. Half-cocked, as the saying would go. Like the story I heard about this young college kid who went to see a traveling preacher who had come to visit his town. When the preacher asked the young man if he had any burdens he wanted to share, the young fellow said yes, he needed help with his hearing, whereupon the preacher immediately grabbed him by the head, by the ears, began to shake him and speak ecstatically. And the young man just had a look of astonishment on his face, whereupon the preacher, stopped shaking him and let go, and he said, "How's your hearing now?" Young man just looked, he said, "I don't know, I don't have to go to court until next week." That preacher probably never heard Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story, did he? Listen to the end. Remember the Y2K phenomena? Well, we actually had people who had been longtime members of the church who got caught up in that to the extreme. Some actually left their homes and went to South America. And fortunately, it wasn't very many people who did that, but several did, and I knew one in particular who would come and visit the various churches, and he was part of the old WCG. What stands out in my mind is the people who did go to South America and left everything and lost a great deal of what their savings and everything by doing it. They were the people who were always seemingly caught up in something, some rumor, some conspiracy, something, And this one gentleman, and I certainly won't mention their names, but after he came back from South America in the Y2K, and he had lost most of his wealth, he still had a home and some other things. He was visiting various churches. I don't know whether he visited Mr. Faulkner's group, a church in Tampa, but he was trying to sell people on a perpetual motion electric generator that would create electricity from the air. Now, you got to be careful when you're selling investments like that. He ended up getting arrested. He ended up losing his home that he had. But he was sincere. He was sincere. And as Mr. Armstrong used to say, a sincere person can do a whole lot more damage because they come across, they believe it, and to their own harm. We're now in the storm season. We're in the storm season of hurricanes, yes, but we're in the storm season of politics. Many of us get emails with scandalous, distorted things sent to them, half-truths, urging us to forward it to everybody in our address book, or at least to our best friends. And of course, We should not, we should resist anything like that, because we may be falling into a trap inspired by the great accuser of the brethren himself, causing us to be partakers of other people's error, other people's sins. The wiles of Satan are considerable. He could cleverly trick most people into doing things they shouldn't do, and normally, if they hadn't been influenced, they wouldn't do. We should be cautious about speaking evil of others. Even, was it Michael, contending for the body of Moses? He wouldn't bring a railing accusation against Satan, and that was Satan, and he wouldn't speak evil in that way. So, let's read what Jesus said here in Matthew 5, verse 37. But let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these comes of evil. And the book of James reinforces that admonition. In James 5:12 we read, but above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, nor by the earth, and neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay, lest you fall into condemnation. The book of Jude warns us of something. He warns that outsiders may come into our feasts, who are described as spots. These spots in your feast of charity, he says in verse 12, when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear, clouds they are without water, carried about by the winds, that is, every wind of doctrine, these new things coming in, trees whose fruit withereth, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. I actually met a person at one of the feasts here in Florida who at first seemed like a normal church person, but as we were standing around fellowshipping and talking, it became clear that he had an agenda. It was coming out that he was very down on women, and he kept praising a particular splinter church that has split off from back in California, Mr. Tkach days. And finally it occurred to me, I said, well, if you think this other one's right and all the other churches have got it wrong, why aren't you over there with them? And this is the truth. There were two people who are at this feast now that saw this and heard it. They won't let me attend. That's true. And no, it doesn't always make sense why people do things, does it? I won't say crazy, but it just doesn't always make a lot of sense. I heard someone express that as a good analogy, and it might have even been Mr. Stinson, because he says things like this. I don't remember, but he said, we can't prevent spots from showing up at the feast, just as we can't prevent birds from flying over our head, but we can prevent them from building a nest on our head, can't we? Destructive beliefs like an unclean spirit seem to wander around looking for a home. Let's not give them our address. This phenomenon is nothing new. My first feast that I attended was in the middle 60s in New York. And the ministry warned us then about, be careful of those who come in to spy out our freedoms, that create dissension, that introduce crazy doctrines, and some of these are certainly nonsense. We're told in Ephesians 6:11, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. That phrase sounds familiar, doesn't it? Reading on to verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. It's so easy to get wrapped up in things. What was it? Somebody came to Christ one time and wanted him to settle. He said, hey, who made me an arbitrator? This was Jesus telling him that. It's There's more than enough people looking for you to get involved in their problems. And what a good time this is, this season when we come here to the feast to change some of the things that maybe we need to change. Whether we need to read more, pray more, meditate more, maybe even exercise more if that's a problem. Whatever we're not doing or haven't been doing that we should be doing, this is a good time to try to change our habits. Replace a habit with something better. It's an acceptable time to begin that change. May we avoid what this says in Galatians 5:19 and 21, and pull away from what it says in Galatians 5:19, 21. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. I don't think we have people with that to that degree, but let's rather do this. It's what goes on in Galatians 5:22 and 23, the fruits of the Spirit. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. When we go out together as a group, and a lot of us do this, to a restaurant or some other area, some other event, we encounter a lot of people, and they see us, they read us. We do make an impression of some kind. Sometimes we make a small impression, maybe sometimes a very big one. The important question, of course, is it a good one or a bad one? Because at the feast, when oftentimes we'll make a reservation, we generally will make it as a church group. They know a church group's coming to the restaurant or something, and it might be various different names we give, but it's a church group, so people know who we are. Do we let our light shine in a case like that? They know we're a church group. Who do we represent? In Luke 6:43 and 44, Jesus said, "For a good tree does not bear bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit, for men do not gather figs from thorns, nor do they gather grapes from a bramble bush." So, and this used to be in the old feast manuals about our conduct with the community that we were going into, and I tried to find one of those. I brought it one year, but so I could read that letter. But as we go about places, especially here at the feast, where we're recognized as a church group that stands out, that's different, we're Sabbatarians, let us avoid the distractions that let us represent in a wrong way. Let's keep our minds on our real goal and let our light shine in a dark world.